Hello, faithful, and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and this is your source for balanced, objective 49ers discussion and analysis that you will not get anywhere else. And today we're going to discuss the Bryce Huff trade being finalized between the Philadelphia Eagles and San Francisco 49ers, what he means to the D-line and the pass rush. We're going to talk about ridiculous first reactions from the first OTAs that San Francisco had last week. A lot of sky is falling craziness, or the other end of the spectrum, taking a little bit too much out of it. And then we're going to conclude by discussing what positions the 49ers could possibly address next. So let's get right into it. Bryce Huff coming over from the Philadelphia Eagles, helping to juice up the pass rush some. And at least the pick parameter of the trade was announced. It's a conditional 5th round pick that could turn into a 4th. Now, Huff did not have a great season in Philadelphia last year, only 2.5 sacks, 13 total tackles. He started, I believe, 6 games with Philly last year. And people are getting into, or the discussion is, where does he fit on the D-line? Is he a starter? He's not big enough to be a starter. And I shouldn't even say that, but with Leonard Floyd getting released, and they are similar-ish body types. Now, granted, I think Leonard Floyd's an inch taller. Bryce Huff's got 10 pounds more on him, and I think Huff stands at 6'3", 255. Huff's not going to be a starter. And this does not in any way fly in the face of San Francisco trying to get bigger and stronger on the defensive line, and specifically at the end, being able to set the edge more on early downs, and then, of course, rush the passer on passing downs. Huff is coming in as a 3rd down pass rush specialist, and that's totally fine. This team, guys, is better today than they were a week ago without Bryce Huff, because defensive end, even with Mykel Williams coming in, with Yetur Gross-Matos, his 2nd year in the system, with Robert Saleh coming aboard as the DC, it did lack that one extra gear, one extra player that could put pressure on the edge outside of Bosa. It's a lot to ask rookie Mykel Williams to be a 6 to 8, 8.5 sack guy. Leonard Floyd was an 8.5 sack guy last year. They got rid of him, just wasn't stout enough. Durable player, though, but just wasn't stout enough at the point of attack. Now, the trade has been examined every which way, and when you go on Twitter, depending on if you're viewing posts from Eagle fans, the Niners got hosed. If you're viewing posts from Niner fans, the Eagles got hosed. Guys, this was a pretty fair trade. Now, Philadelphia is going to eat a little over $9 million of Huff's guaranteed salary. San Francisco takes on just about $8 million. San Francisco yesterday, I'm filming this on June 3rd. So June 2nd, they gained $5.6 million in cap space with the June 1st releases of Javon Hargrave and Malik Collins. So essentially, when it comes to cap, Bryce Huff cost the 49ers about $2.4 million in cap space, and they still have about $50 million in cap space right now heading into OTAs and training camp. And of course, the plan per John Lynch and management is to roll over a significant portion of that cap into next year, as 2026, his words, not mine, in 2027 are going to be a bit tighter cap-wise than it was this season, even with the deletions, the trading of Debo, the release of Hargrave, not signing Greenlaw, not signing Ward, not signing Hufanga. Now, as for Huff, it's a $5.4 million cap hit for this year. Not bad at all. He has a 14. So this is all per Spotrac, and I don't know how up to date everything is, but let me just give you the information. $5.4 million cap hit this year. Similar, I think, no, I'm sorry, $7.5 million cap hit in 2025. I was looking at 2026. I'm sorry. $5.4 million cap hit in 2026. He's got 4 void years from 27 to 2030, each worth, quote unquote, $3 million in voided money. Now, Huff also has a $14.6 million option bonus that needs to be exercised before the 2026 season. Again, per Spotrac, there were reports that Huff adjusted his contract to help facilitate a trade to San Francisco. Now, how much Philly ate versus how much San Francisco ate in terms of his $17+ million salary, that had nothing to do with Bryce Huff. He's getting paid, just a matter of who's paying how much. But what he could get paid in 2026, or the option bonus, or however much is guaranteed, that could potentially be in play to be reworked, or Spotrac is not up to date, or Spotrac is absolutely up to date. If that's the case, then I wonder how much that $14.6 million option bonus affects his cap hit in 2026, that $5.4 million, if at all. Now, I mentioned last year in Philadelphia, not great after signing, a 3-year, $51 million contract after being traded from the Jets. 2.5 sacks, 13 tackles. 2023, his last year with New York, 10 sacks, 29 tackles, a 22.9% pass rush win rate, which was the third highest among all edge rushers per Pro Football Focus. Did not start any games with the Jets in 2023, only started 6 with Philadelphia last year, has only started 13 games in his 5-year career. That should be a signal that he is not a starter. Now, it doesn't mean he's not a valuable piece, doesn't mean he's hopefully going to be, or not hopefully going to be a force on the D line or see a good number of snaps. And if you want to say it's a lot of money to pay a third down pass rush specialist, that's why I didn't think it was a good investment a couple months ago when it was brought up on social media by a few people that the 49ers should trade for Bryce Huff. And that's when the Niners were getting into cutting salary mode. It didn't make any sense to bring in someone with $17 million in guaranteed salary. Of course, you had to give up a draft pick to bring in somebody who wasn't a starter, wasn't going to get forget the whole starter, non-starter thing. We could look at it as he's just not getting as many snaps as Bosa and either Michael Williams or Yetur Gross-Matos, whoever's going to start or play early base downs opposite Bosa. So I'm not worried about the starting aspect of it, but the cash split, or the 60-40 split, the Eagles taking on about 60%, the Niners taking on about 40%, made this trade make more sense to me now versus what it was, or what it could have been, 2 or 3 months ago. So the timing worked out in terms of Huff being available, Eagles finding a trade partner, Eagles getting the compensation of a 5th, which could potentially be a 4th. Now, Huff does have escalators in his contract in terms of, I think, another $500,000 if he's a Pro Bowler. It might be another $1 million if he's an All-Pro. And if he gets to 12 sacks, which we would all be thrilled about, another $500,000. If he gets to 13 or 14 sacks, that goes to $1 million. If he gets to 15 sacks, $1.5 million. So, and granted, that's a lot of money in the grand scheme for us lay people. Another $500,000 for Bryce Huff. I'm sure he would rather have it than not, but not a ton more of money that he could maybe logically get. But playing under Saleh, Chris Kasorik, the D-line coach, opposite Bosa, potentially opposite Michael Williams as the season goes on, if he becomes a more seasoned pass rusher, he could stand to make a bit more money. But as a third down specialist, I mean, here's how the line's going to look first and second down. It's going to be Bosa at one edge. I'm anticipating Jordan Elliott's going to start probably alongside Alfred Collins, and Yetur Gross-Matos or Michael Williams will be the edge on the other side. Now, come third down, you're going to have their NASCAR package. You're going to have Bosa. You're going to have Yetur inside. Maybe someone like a Kevin Givens comes inside also, just give a little bit more beef on the inside, with Bryce Huff on the outside. It's entirely possible they go all DNs, right? Bosa, Yetur, Michael Williams, and Bryce Huff. That is entirely possible. But when they've done it in the past, I mean, they've had someone like an Eric Armstead rush with an Arden Key inside, and if it was Bosa and D Ford or whoever that other rusher was on the outside opposite Nick Bosa, they're going to have options, right? They're going to have options. The D-line, to me, should be at least 9 players on the 53. I would feel better with 10. And let's make it balanced. 5 D tackles, 5 DNs. We're talking about, Huff and the DNs right now. Who's out? Well, we know for sure that Bosa, Michael Williams, Bryce Huff, and Yetur Gross-Matos are in. Even though the Niners can release Yetur and save about $5 million on the cap, he fits the body type that I think Saleh wants. He could play outside. He can play inside. So I think you have 4 guaranteed, and then you have the following players fighting for one spot: Sam Okawanu, Robert Beal, Jonathan Garvin, and Teron Jackson. Samo had a pretty good year in spot duty for San Francisco, being pretty much a journeyman, a practice squad player, got some playing time with the LA Rams, had 3 or 4 sacks this year with San Francisco. Smaller, 6'1", but wider, about 270. Someone like Robert Beal is 6'4", 250, so built a little bit more like Leonard Floyd. Jonathan Garvin, earmarked probably for the practice squad, and/or Taron Jackson as well. I'm not even going to make a prediction of who the 5th DN should be. I just think they should have 5 DNs. The D-line as a whole was an issue last year. And if you have the ability in constructing your 53 by keeping 5 D tackles and 5 DNs, I think that goes a long way in helping to solve, not solving, because we don't know how this is all going to play out, but helping to solve the Niners' major issue last year, which was run defense and getting pressure on the quarterback with just 4. Doesn't mean Saleh is not going to blitz every once in a while. I think he still will have to, but I think Saleh gets to blitz less now because Bryce Huff is in the fold. This is, again, assuming that this is a healthy-ish team, much more so than what it was last year. So now let's turn our attention to first reactions to OTAs. And I opened up the podcast saying, this is your source for balanced and objective 49ers discussion. And you can just see how imbalanced 49er Twitter is just based on reactions to OTAs or anything in general. Basically the Grant Cohn clown clique, anybody that's associated with them as a content creator or ardent follower, negative in terms of how Christian McCaffrey looked. Grant Cohn, among others, slow. He's lost a step. Isaac Guerendo may be in line for some significant RB1 duties. Can he ever come back from the Achilles bilateral tendonitis? If it was Achilles surgery on one or both legs, I might say, well, that might be a tough, hill to climb. Tendonitis, healed from it, and then had an unfortunate, a PCL injury in his knee that kept him out the remainder of the season. Let's look at the bright side. And I'm not an optimist, but let's look at the bright side. Christian only playing in 3 or 4 games last year. Less wear and tear on the body as a whole, right? The injuries that kept him out, Achilles bilateral tendonitis, could have been serious, could have developed into a tear and didn't. The PCL or the knee injury could have been worse than it was, basically a sprain. Kept him out of the regular season, and the way the Niners season was going, there was no need to bring him back, just like they didn't bring Trent Williams back with the ankle injury that he sustained. But you have the Cohn clones taking away from OTAs, slow, he doesn't look good, what are the Niners doing? There's injuries. And then you have David Lombardi, who is essentially, and I enjoy his content. I enjoy some of the Cohn clowns content too. It's not all misery, but a good portion of it is, and that's their shtick. Just like David Lombardi's shtick is basically blowing the team. If the 49ers were ever symbolized as a penis, David Lombardi would go down on it. He's a homer. He thinks he's objective. He's not. He does a decent job about presenting facts, but anything that the Niners do is gold. I can't go through I've went through his timeline the past couple of days, trying to figure out if I could find anything critiquing the team or negative. Like, the Niners aren't perfect. There's things to critique. Can't find it. So that's why I said, and I'm a nobody, obviously, in the big podcast or content creators game, but I try to look at things from both sides, and then I'll give my opinion how I think something's going to work out, or a win-loss record, or, game-by-game predictions. How's Brock going to do? How's Michael Williams going to do? Stuff like that. But I try to look at it from both sides. And then you have John Lynch, which, of course, he's going to say something positive, right? McCaffrey looks bouncy. He looks explosive. Everything's good. He's as healthy as he can be. That was a quote, I think, by Kyle Shanahan that people took out of context. Well, what do you mean? What does he mean he's as healthy as he can be? Like, shouldn't he be healthier than that? No, he's at peak. If you want to say he's 100% healthy, then he's 100% healthy. He can't get any healthier at this point in the season. I think that was pretty logical to take away, but either people are morons or they want to glom onto the negative or read between the lines when something's not there. Now, folks were also taking exception to injuries that players have. And oh my God, they're not participating in OTAs. They're not going to be ready for mini camp, training camp, which is over a month away. And the players are Ricky Pearsall tweaked his hamstring. Jair Brown had ankle surgery. And we didn't find out about that until like a week-ish ago, which is fine because we didn't know Malik Mustafa tore his ACL until like March or April. So that's how the Niners don't have to disclose injuries. As much as it might aggravate content creators or media members or fans off that we weren't informed of a certain injury that happened, the team doesn't owe us anything. What value or what advantage does it serve to let people know that Malik Mustafa tore his ACL in January? And even Mustafa was in on the secret. He didn't post anything on social media. There was nothing, no leak by him, his camp, his friends, teammates, his family, nothing. There's no advantage. Now, the Niners drafted Marquise Siegel in the 5th round. So it's not like, Mustafa was hurt. Was that going to give away their big plan to draft a safety on day 1 or day 2? It didn't happen. It was day 3 anyway. But there's no need. There's no advantage. Totally fine. And Marquez Siegel, Kansas State, they knew when they drafted him that he would not be ready until training camp. And I did a little bit of research before this. I apologize. I couldn't find what the actual injury was, but he'll be okay in training camp. All these players have a month plus to heal. I think Shanahan or Lynch said if this was the regular season and we had a game next weekend, we'd be pushing Pearsall to play. So it's much ado about nothing. Jair Brown, the ankle surgery. The only thing in any sport, right? If you're going to have surgery as a fan, as a coach, as a PT member, physician on the staff of a team, I'd imagine you'd want the player to have surgery as soon as possible. So, anything can happen during rehab, but you have a better chance. That player has a better chance of being healed if you have surgery in January than in March or April, right? For whatever they're gearing towards, training camp, OTs, whatever it may be. But I can understand players coming off of a hard season, long, grueling season, especially in football. They want to give themselves maybe a month or 2 off, maybe try to rehab to see if surgery is necessary, or just not go under the knife and come off of a grueling NFL season and then be put under the knife and then have to rehab, etc. I understand it both ways, but this was much ado about nothing. And the 4th player was Alfred Collins, the big D tackle out of Texas. 2nd round pick, has either a foot or a calf issue, was seen in a walking boot at his pro day, which now again was 3 months ago, 2 to 3 months ago at this point. Shanahan called him week to week. He hasn't signed yet. The injury has nothing to do with whether he's signed or not. The issue is, I think the first 2 or 3 players in the 2nd round got fully guaranteed contracts the first time ever. Thanks a lot, dickbag agents. Good for the players, but that should be a first round only thing. And I'm not against players not getting as much money as they can, but it's only a matter of time before 3rd or 4th rounders are getting guaranteed money, right? Like it's not going to go backwards. And a lot of 2nd round picks are not signed yet because of that. It's got nothing to do with his injury. It's got nothing to do with anything other than agents pushing for their players, and that's their job, to get more guaranteed money. So I know OTAs are going to continue. I think only 10 sessions-ish are available to media members. I live on the East Coast. I won't be there, but I will, much like you, I'm sure, be reading, the reports about how good, bad, or milquetoast indifferent some of the players look. And, it's been 4 to 5 months since the Niners have played any meaningful football. I get it. We are all chomping at the bit for something to discuss, something to analyze, something to get excited about that may give some sort of a clue or hint as to how the season is going to unfold, how the rookies are going to fare. Robert Saleh being in the fold again, Brent Boyer, special teams, new punter, etc. Potentially a new kickoff returner in Junior Bergen, the rookie out of Montana. For all teams, all fans, it's the season of hope. But of course, as you go on social media, especially Twitter, anybody throws one good pass in OTAs, oh, they're going to be a problem. This quarterback's looking great, or, who's going to stop this offense now because someone just signed a garbage free agent that, as wide receiver 3 or 4. Hyperbole on both sides of the coin. And like I said, I'm not a optimistic person. I probably skew more toward pessimism, but I'm more even keel. I certainly wasn't like this probably 5 to 10 plus years ago. I mean, a Niner loss used to ruin my day, or free agent signings or people getting released. Like things would, not that I would be vocal about because I didn't have a podcast at that point. I wasn't on Twitter. Wasn't shouting into the ether about any of this stuff. But it's everything that we have to take with a grain of salt. I'm excited to see how, if Purdy throws a couple interceptions in OTAs, are people going to revolt? And I think in the next podcast, I'm going to discuss expectations for Purdy this upcoming season. It's good that there will be new news to read about, to watch videos of, to sink our teeth into. The danger of that is when you have misery merchants on one side and reporters that want to basically fillet the 49ers on the other side, and that's a team that can do no wrong. It leaves an interesting gap in content creators and the fandom that, if I can fill that somewhat for, at my small viewership and listenership that's with me, and thank you so much for joining today. If you're listening, that you are, I'm just going to be the one that's going to preach, hey guys, it's OTAs. Does it really matter? Now, someone blows an ACL out, an Achilles, clavicle, big injuries. I don't care how anybody looks. I honestly don't care about how anybody looks, who's dropping passes, missing tackles, missing blocks, beating offensive tackles around the edge. I don't care about any of that. I just want the Niners to come out of OTAs healthy and even training camp, because 7-on-7s or joint practices, preseason games don't matter at all. So still, we have time before the dreaded 30-plus day summer break between OTAs and training camp, but we will have podcasts throughout, whether it is once or twice a week. Now, let's conclude this abbreviated podcast with positions that the 49ers could potentially address next. Well, they addressed punter, so Morstead is in. Mitch Wishnowsky is gone. It wasn't a back issue per Kyle. They just wanted, I think Boyer just wanted his guys, right? You got a new long snapper in John Weeks. You have Morstead as a punter, bringing in Greg Joseph to compete with Jake Moody at kicker. And that's someone that Boyer had experience with the Jets. Brought in Luke Gifford at linebacker, brought in Ciaran Neal at cornerback, who's going to make the team probably as corner 4 or 5, and Richie Grant at safety. So a complete overhaul in outside of Jake Moody and potentially Junior Bergen as the returner. The Niners are, I don't want to say they're taking special teams seriously, because I don't buy into the narrative that they weren't before, but you can see with the moves they've made, they're trying to address it, right? With the moves they made on the D line, 4 new players, Huff, Michael Williams, Alfred Collins, and CJ West. Either 40 to 45% of the D line is going to be new this year for San Francisco compared to 2024. They are addressing their biggest needs and weaknesses. And the biggest one was replacing Nick Sorensen with Robert Saleh. So the Niners aren't going 17-0. I don't think they're going 14-3. I haven't pegged it 11-6. Maybe 12-5 is the ceiling. The Niners were aggressive, even though they didn't spend a ton of money. And if people are going to call the Yorks cheap, actually, I shouldn't even say that. Even though the Niners didn't initially spend a lot of money, didn't initially go after big free agent names or bring back Dre Greenlaw or Charvarius Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, releasing Hargrave, releasing Malik Collins, letting Jalen Moore walk to the Chiefs for $15 million a year, letting Aaron Banks walk to the Packers for $20 million a year. All smart moves that I predicted before they happened and am totally on board with. The money came. The money came in terms of Brock's extension, Kittle's extension, Fred Warner's extension, Demo's extension during the season. And I think that was so out of sight, out of mind that people forgot that they dropped $15 million-ish a year on Debo. It was all, why aren't you signing anybody? Middle of March, it's free agency. Wah, wah, wah. What have you done from your lately immediacy type of culture that we live in? Back to positions the Niners can or could address. So receivers been talked about a lot, right? And there is the chance, I'm not going to say it's a good chance, but here's the chance that with Ayuk possibly being out the first 4 weeks plus, starting on PUP, he'll be out for the first 4 weeks and they can activate him after that. And then he has 21 days, 3 weeks to practice and get ready. So he could be ready for week 5, week 6, or week 7. And Robinson, the receiver, Demarcus Robinson from the Rams, might be out for the first 3 games as the NFL is mulling a suspension for him. You'd have to think the Niners have potentially some idea on how that's going to shake out. But worst case scenario, let's say those 2 players are gone. That means you'd have, and this would be my depth chart. Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall starting. I would have Isaiah Hodgins or potentially Russell Gage as the number 3, an experienced receiver. Jacob Cowing as your number 4 receiver, Jordan Watkins, the rookie out of Ole Miss, and then Junior Bergen. I have him sticking on the roster for now. And I think they're going to keep 6 wide receivers when it's all said and done. But if you have 2 receivers out for like the first month, it gives someone that's a fringe type of player on the roster bubble the ability to make the team. Now, and if Russell Gage isn't, or Isaiah Hodgins isn't part of the 53 to start the season, one of those 2 can start in the practice squad. That's fine. Tariq Owens could be there. Trent Taylor can be there. Nair, the undrafted rookie free agent who is destined to be a training camp hero out of Nebraska, could be on the practice squad as well. But I think the Niners would need to go with, and I think they're okay. I think they would be okay with this 6 to start the season because you still have McCaffrey, you still have Kittle, right? You still have Guendo at running back to spell McCaffrey. We'll see what Jordan James is going to be. It's not like they don't have weapons outside of receiver, but names that have been floated out there. I think you know that Gabe Davis, formerly of the Bills or Jaguars, one of those 2 teams, came for a visit, wasn't signed. Amari Cooper, formerly of the Bills and Browns, Keenan Allen, formerly of the Chargers and Bears, and Tyler Boyd, formerly of the Bengals and Titans, are possibilities. Now, here's the thing, though. Let's say they go with 6 receivers and you bring any one of those in. I guess you automatically cut Junior Bergen, right? I still think Kyle likes veterans. So Jennings is a veteran. Pearsall's a second-year player. Hodgins or Gage are veterans. Cowing's second year. Watkins is a rookie. Junior Bergen would be a rookie. So I think if any one of those players comes in, I think Junior Bergen would be the odd man out, and Jacob Cowing, if he is close to Bergen in terms of punt return and kick return duties, would stick on the roster. Unless there's another injury, I don't think they would make a move for another receiver unless there's a backfire or some sort of an obstacle in Brandon Ayuk's recovery. Maybe then I can see that. But right now, I think they roll with who's on the roster. The other position that's gotten some discussion is safety. And that's mainly because Malik Mustafa is going to be at least out for the first 4 weeks plus of the season, probably more. He tore his ACL week 18 at Arizona, which means he might not have had surgery until mid to end of January. So February, March, April, May, he's only 4 to 5 months out now. So he could be maybe back end of October if things go really well. And people keep bringing up like, oh, what about, bring Justin Simmons in, bring Julian Blackmon in, Jordan Whitehead is a free agent as well. To those people, I say, stop sleeping on Jason Pinnock. They signed him, I think it was the first week of free agency, 3-year starter for the Giants. It's going to be his 5th year in the league. He is your veteran safety, guys. It's this lack of recency. I don't know if it's lack of recency bias, but if Jason Pinnock was available and they signed him yesterday, there would be oh yay, Niners. The fans would be in a euphoric uproar. The Niners signed a veteran free agent. Wow, we're good now until Mustafa is healed. Well, why isn't that not the case already? They brought in 2 veterans. They brought in Jason Pinnock and they brought in Richie Grant. I think to start the season, it's going to be Jason Pinnock and Jair Brown. Again, the ankle surgery, he's going to be cleared for training camp, not an issue. And then you have either George Odom or Richie Grant. I think one of those stays because they're both more special team safeties than starting caliber or backup caliber safeties that you would trust. I think Richie Grant has a little bit more starters or snap playing time than George Odom does. Then you have the rookie Marquise Siegel. I don't think they're going to give up on him immediately. Drafted him as a 5th round pick, unless there's something really bad with his injury rehab. Something doesn't work and he has to get stashed on IR. And then Jalen Mahoney, 2nd-year player, undrafted rookie out of Vanderbilt last year. So 7 safeties on the roster. Is it possible they bring someone in? I don't say for a tryout, but a low cost veteran? Absolutely. But I don't think Justin Simmons is that for the amount of money that he's probably going to command once an injury hits in OTAs or the summer. And the same with Julian Blackman. Maybe you get, you'll definitely get him for cheaper than Justin Simmons, but how much do you want to spend on a safety that may go back to the bench? And this probably isn't Justin Simmons, but a Julian Blackman or someone else that may go back to the bench when Mustafa is potentially healthy. You want to say, oh, maybe it pushes Jair Brown to the bench or pushes potentially, Jason Pinnock to the bench. And we, you always want, competition everywhere on the roster. I get it. That's cool and makes sense. I think with even though the Niners can afford it, they can, right? They got $50-ish million in cap space. Even though the Niners can afford it, I think they roll with the receivers that they currently have, unless new information comes to light with Robinson and Ayuk or Pearsall's hamstring or something happens in OTAs or training camp and they need another body. But then if you need another body, it's just going to be the young guys, the Tariq Owens of the world, the Nayers, they could potentially, bring in a young camp body versus someone that may actually compete for the 53. So I think receiver and safety, the 49ers are set. They brought in 2 offensive tackles in Petit Frere and Andre Dillard, along with Austin Pleasance. The DJ Humphrey stuff still is in the air. He hasn't signed. He's not on the team, at least the last time I checked, which was earlier today, unless I completely missed it. Offensive tackle could be the other spot that they, could potentially look, but good at QB. Maybe if a guard shakes free, they want a little bit more competition, but, and potentially D tackle as well. I mean, this is not a perfect roster. So for me to say like, I think they're set everywhere, it's not a perfect roster. If you can upgrade more or less anywhere, you kick the tires, you explore it, but it takes 2 to tango, right? What San Francisco may want to offer a player at any one of those positions I mentioned, a minute or 2 ago, may not be what those players want to sign for. So still a lot of time. The Niners have time in those 30 days between OTAs and training camp to fine tune the roster even more. But for now, for what it's worth, and I'm a nobody, I'm happy with where the 90-man roster stands. And I have, at least in my mind, a pretty decent idea of what 90 to 95% of the 53-man roster, where that's going to stand. But of course, all subject to change, OTAs, training camp, injuries, new players signing, coming and going, etc. But that's a discussion for another day. And we have a lot of time between now and training camp, and even more time between now and the start of the 2025 season up at Seattle. But I'm going to pause there. That's the end of the podcast. Like always, everyone, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to make us part of your listening routine. If it's your first time listening or watching, thank you so much. Glad to have you aboard. If you've been listening for a while, thank you so much for staying aboard. Summertime, we're getting there. Obviously, NBA Finals, Indiana and Oklahoma City. NHL Finals between the Oilers and Panthers should be a good one as well. And obviously, baseball is happening. But for us, it's usually all 49ers, all NFL all the time. The way the NFL and ESPN and NFL Network have everything concocted. But hopefully another podcast. I know the last podcast was 2 weeks, so hopefully another podcast next week. And once we get into the doldrums, the 30 days between OTAs and training camp, I am going to aim to have a weekly podcast to discuss, different maybe rankings of position groups, offense, defense, any sort of stats or predictions, anything just to keep the content flowing and have some discussions as we steamroll into the summer and towards next season. Whatever you all are doing between now and when we speak again, stay happy, healthy, and safe, everybody. Talk soon. Take care.